38 this season with 20 homers and 98 RBIs. Canyon Brown, a catcher at North Carolina A&T, was chosen by the Kansas City Royals in the 9th round. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
In the midst of sorrow, you can be up and looking down. Right away to sorrow will bring. Oh, you hear the voice of freedom telling you this can't be done. No matter how high reality seems, just hold on to the dream, yeah.
Live from Washington, D.C., you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and chief White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNiiQuartelai. Yep. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Just type in Dr. Nii, DrNii, and boom, bam, boom. I pop right on up. Be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. And last but not least, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580. Carry us with you everywhere you go, from the TSA line to the grocery store line. You want to keep us close, as there's a lot of news that is swirling. And speaking of news, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, officers fatally shoot a person in Milwaukee outside the RNC perimeter. That's right. Just moments before we joined you on air, USA Today is reporting that an out-of-town police officer shot and killed an individual early Tuesday afternoon. That's early this afternoon, about a mile from the Republican National Convention site. It's according to two local law enforcement sources. The shooting took place amid heightened security at the presidential nominating convention following the shocking attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump on Saturday. Brian Steele, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Capitol City Lodge number 9 in Columbus, Ohio, confirmed that Columbus police were involved in a shooting in Milwaukee. The shooting occurred near the North 14th and West Valet Streets outside the security perimeter for the RNC. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel has reporters at the scene and are a part of USA Today's coverage. And so if there are any updates on that story while we're on air, we'll be sure to bring that to you. But keeping with this idea of public safety, the theme of the RNC Day 2, ironically, is safety, as the investigation into the assassination attempt of former President Trump continues. NPR is reporting that today's RNC theme is Make America Safe Once Again, to focus on putting an end to the endless crime spree and drug flow that plague America. That's according to a Trump press release. Some of the things that people are keeping an eye out include the schedule for tonight of speakers, and it's just been released. And to give you a taste of who is speaking tonight, we see that Arizona's Kari Lake, early in the evening, an hour's worth of Republican U.S. Senate candidates will take the stage, including the Arizona Senate candidate, Ohio's Bernie Moreno, West Virginia's Jim Justice, and Nevada's Sam Brown. They're taking the stage today. Later in the evening, 3 of Trump's 2024 presidential primary opponents will spread a message of GOP unity. We're talking about former tech CEO Vivek Ramaswamy, former Ambassador Nikki Haley, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Other former Trump critics who are now counted in Trump's corner include Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Florida Senator Marco Rubio, both of whom also are scheduled to address the RNC. So if you're looking to watch live, that's who's going to be there. For some people, watching live is a little too much, and so they'll catch the highlights a little bit later. But we are doing our part to keep you informed. Also, some other news coming in. The Secret Service has boosted protection of Trump after an Iranian threat appears after that Saturday attack. It appears unrelated, but this story is still developing. And so lots of stories in the news related to the safety of Trump, and really the safety of a number of our elected officials has been called into question. The safety of all of us. You know, gun violence doesn't just impact people who happen to be running for president, and it impacts all of us each and every day. And so we are seeing that in plain view. Moving along, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on Senator Menendez to resign after a guilty verdict came in this afternoon. That's right. The Senate Majority Leader and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy issued swift calls today for Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat of New Jersey, to resign after he was convicted of taking bribes from 3 business executives who showered him and his wife with cash, gold bars, and a Mercedes-Benz. Murphy reiterated his call for Menendez to step down from his Senate seat, saying in a statement that Menendez has to leave office immediately after being found guilty of endangering national security and the integrity of our criminal justice system. We shall see if Senator Menendez resigns, as they're calling for him to do, or if he is going to belt out Effie's famous "I ain't going." We shall see. In other news today, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, they're warning of possible follow-on or retaliatory attacks in the wake of Trump's assassination attempts. This is sort of the worst case scenario that folks have had in mind since Saturday. ABC News is reporting that the Department of Homeland Security and FBI have issued a bulletin to law enforcement across the country, warning them that in the wake of Saturday's attempted assassination of former President Trump, violent extremists could try to conduct follow-on or retaliatory attacks at events over the next few months related to the 2024 presidential election. The bulletin urged local, state, and federal law enforcement and their partners to remain vigilant and report any suspicious behavior. You might remember that shortly after Trump began speaking on Saturday at his campaign event in Butler, Pennsylvania, a 20-year-old Pennsylvania man, Thomas Matthew Crooks, opened fire from a nearby rooftop with a bullet grazing Trump's ear and leaving the former president bloodied. In news that's a little bit more upbeat, USA Today is reporting that Biden is to call for a 5% cap on annual rent increases, which is a critical issue for voters. President Biden will announce a new 5% cap on rental increases nationwide, a proposal aimed at stemming inflation-driven housing costs that have not dipped since the pandemic. Biden hopes to unveil the proposal during a campaign stop in Nevada, which coincidentally happens to be a critical swing state for Democrats that have been crippled by soaring housing costs. Under the new measure, which would require congressional approval, corporate landlords, not your mom and pop landlords, your corporate landlords, would lose the ability to write off depreciation values from their units if they increase tenants' rent more than 5%. In places like Las Vegas, investors are buying up homes with cash, turning them into rental properties and raising rents. The plan would only apply to landlords with over 50 units in their portfolio who account for roughly half of the rental market. The cap wouldn't apply to units that haven't been built. If Biden's budget for fiscal year 2025, in that budget, he sought an investment of more than $258 billion to build and preserve more than 2 million housing units to lower rents and make housing more affordable. You might remember that rental prices have surged 29% since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, averaging an annual increase of 7% over the last 4 years. And so we have been talking about how the rent is too damn high. Hello, can I get an amen, somebody? The Biden-Harris administration has submitted a proposal to actually do something about it. And so we're going to keep our eye on this. And in the coming days and weeks, we'll be sure to have some experts on to help us make this make sense and pencil it out. You know, sometimes, we hear these headlines, but it's one thing to hear a headline. It's another thing to actually take out your pen or pencil and do that back of the napkin calculation to understand what it might mean for you. When we come forward, we're digging even deeper into the headlines. One of the biggest headlines that's swirling right now related to Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, who remains determined to move forward with a transgender ban. Yeah, the fraternity is considering this transgender ban and has made that next step known after an overwhelming vote just yesterday. To help us make it make sense, I'll be joined with Travell Anderson, an award-winning journalist, podcast host, and an author. And he has his finger on the pulse of this, and we are going to get to the bottom of this when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Work is busy, and home, pretty much the same. But you wouldn't know it because my skin doesn't look stressed thanks to Olay Retinol Body Wash. Its hydrating formula is packed with vitamin B3 complex plus retinol. I use Olay Retinol Body Wash to transform my skin from dry to moisturized and visibly renewed. Sure, I still have stress, but my skin looks amazing. Try Olay Retinol Body Wash for visibly renewed skin in just 14 days. Also try Retinol 24 Body
With
Lotion.
no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One and a member FDIC.
Paid for by government. Did you hear? A secret hoard of 1904 $20 gold Liberty coins have been found. These gorgeous 1904p gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this secret U.S. gold coin discovery a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you can own a piece of the hoard. When you call, you are guaranteed a 1904 gold Liberty struck at the iconic Philadelphia Mint. With limited availability, you must call now. These 1904 dated gold coins are still in uncirculated condition with brilliant luster. That is 120 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-973-3083. Call now, and you'll receive a free bonus, a $75 value free with every order. Call 1-800-973-3083 now to secure your 1904p $20 gold Liberty coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-973-3083.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm really delighted to welcome Travell Anderson to the show. Welcome back, Travell.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being here. For folks that are less familiar with Travell's work, I've got to tell you, go pick up Travell's book. First things first. It's called We See Each Other, A Black Trans Journey Through TV and Film. He also is the co-authoress of the NAACP Image Award-winning book, Historically Black Phrases from I Ain't One of Your Little Friends to Who All Gonna Be There.
Yes, available wherever you get wonderful books.
I love it. Author to author. I'm loving it. And so set the table for us, Travell, for folks who are less familiar, who haven't been following this as closely. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has, as of yesterday, overwhelmingly voted to pass a proposed bylaw change that would ban trans members. And that amendment has now proceeded to another voting and approval stage by individual chapters and the general body before being officially adopted. Where did this idea to institute a trans ban, where did it come from? And why is Alpha moving forward with deliberate speed on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not quite clear to me yet how and why this is an issue in this particular moment for the fraternity to kind of put their eggs in a particular basket toward. What I do know, based on a dozen or so interviews that I've done with members of the organization, is that this question around trans membership is actually one that they have been kind of broadly discussing in loose terms for a number of years now, but only now has an actual proposal, right, manifested in terms of being considered and ultimately voted on by the delegates at their constitutional convention over the weekend. And so from the interviews I've done, folks basically articulate sort of both a generational and a morality shift in Alpha Phi Alpha, by which I mean you've got, usually older and therefore more traditional folks who don't believe that, for example, transgender men are men, and therefore don't believe they should be able to be members of the organization, juxtaposed against what I'm told, younger member, right, who's more likely to be progressive, who believes that if somebody is identifying as a man, moving through the world as a man, and wants to be in community, right, with other men, that they should have the opportunity, to pledge and show their interest in this organization and eventually become a member. And I think one of the main things that a lot of folks brought up to me was that, considering there has not been a particular moment or issue that is the catalyst for this consideration, that they can't help but look at our broader political landscape, right, and see the similarities with a potential regression of sorts within Alpha Phi Alpha, matching a potential regression of sorts in terms of how the broader trans community is being, treated and legislated against, outside of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Black Enterprise is reporting that DeAndre Miles Hercules, self-described gender creative alpha, who uses they them pronouns, strongly criticized the proposal, saying, quote, their decision to alienate trans and non-binary people from membership is reactionary, asinine, and unbecoming of an organization with a professed commitment to human rights. It's ludicrous to be the fraternity of Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King Jr. and come up with a policy that bans trans people. Now, that's what they said. The Constitutional Convention described by General President Willis Lonser III, who we've had on this show before, he says it's quote, an opportunity to be a part of history. And we'll see delegates from over 700 chapters worldwide debating proposed amendments. In Lonser's letter to membership, he indicated the cultural shift, noting that, quote, while the character and values of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated are as steadfast as the Great Sphinx of Giza, societies are not. He says they go on to say that many Alpha members, including those from the LGBTQ community, feel betrayed by the consideration of this amendment. Travell, should the members of the LGBTQ community who are also alphas, should they feel betrayed by this amendment, or should LGBTQ people who are not alpha members, should they be betrayed? Should they feel betrayed by alpha folks that are a part of the community?
I think we can debate should or should not, right? What I will do is just cite some of the commentary that I've seen pop up after I reported this story, which is folks noting that, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is an organization that, has members who are not Black, right? A historically Black organization that has members who are not Black, but with this proposal, they are telling a segment of Black people, right, that they cannot be members. Others have noted that this institution, as you just mentioned, DeAndre Miles Hercules, who I interviewed in my report, they're one of few people that I could find, but also one of few people generally who the proposed ban would actually impact. They talk about how this is an organization, right, whose civil rights history, whose social justice history, right, is frontward facing, right, that talks about equality, that talks about love for all mankind, and that even just the consideration of this proposal, is kind of flies in the face of that. One of the things I really found, though, is that this isn't just a conversation within the alphas, right? I reported in my update that we published yesterday that after finding and reporting out about Alpha Phi Alpha considering this ban, I was contacted by a member of Phi Beta Sigma who told me, in which I was able to verify, that Phi Beta Sigma has a transgender ban that they've had on the books since 2017, right? We know that Zeta Phi Beta attempted a trans ban on the sorority side of things. And after backlash, they changed their mind. And now they are, one of the sororities that is explicitly, open to trans members, trans women to be specific. And so it's a broader conversation than just Alpha Phi Alpha. But I think we see in so many ways folks saying that out of all of the organizations, this one in particular perhaps should not be the one seeming to lead on the conversation in this particular moment.
Well, I mean, but there's other people who say, A is for alpha, first letter in the alphabet, and so, folks look to alpha for leadership in so many other ways. I've got to ask you, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. There are
now the devil don't need no help, doctor. Okay, but go ahead.
I'm just gonna provide just sort of a counter perspective. There are some alphas who say, "Well, wait a minute. This organization was created presumably by Black cisgender men." And they say, well, what's wrong with having a space, having an organization that is steeped in traditions that, are intending to create sort of safe space for folks who are in community and identify that way?
Well, I would say that those traditions over time have shifted within Alpha Phi Alpha, but all of the Divine Nine organizations, within even the non-Black ones, Greek letter organizations, fraternities and sororities. Traditions change, right? When Alpha Phi Alpha was founded, it was for Black men, right? And now we all know of a white alpha, right, who is so ice cold, okay? And so because traditions change, you change and you shift to, in theory, accommodate, right, the world in which we find ourselves in. And the reality is we are talking about, with this proposed ban, I should say, it's not clear whether the target is restricting membership from trans men, right? So folks who do identify as a man, right? Folks who are on college campuses today, right? College populations we know are more likely to identify as LGBTQ than any generation ever before, right? So that's where we would be seeing this happening. So we're not sure whether it's targeting trans men, preventing trans men from being part of this men community, or if they are trying to distance or disavow current members, right, who came into the organization identifying as a man, but may not identify as such any longer, such as trans women, such as trans femmes, such as gender creative folks, right, such as Miles Hercules. We don't have clarity there, so we're not even sure. And I think we just assume then that it's targeting all trans people. But the reality is there are some trans people who identify as men. Why should they not also be able to be in the men's organization?
I think that's a really important question. We're going to pick up that question and we're going to dig even deeper into some other headlines when we come forward. I'm so delighted to have Tre'vell Anderson here with us, helping us make it make sense. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Mike Stevens, here is the latest from the Black Information Network. Officials in Milwaukee are responding to the scene of a police shooting just outside of the security zone of the Republican National Convention. During some sort of altercation, Milwaukee's black police chief is responsible for security outside of where the RNC is taking place. The BIN is reporting from the RNC this week, and we will have more on this as additional details come in. Several conservative African Americans are speaking at the RNC, including Congressman Byron Daniels of Florida, Wesley Hunt of Texas, and Senator Tim Scott, with more scheduled. Meanwhile, President Biden is in Las Vegas to speak at the NAACP convention, a sign he is back on the campaign trail. The BIN is also reporting from there as well. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Stevens on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The sports world is mourning the loss of Joe Jellybean Bryant, father of Lakers legend Kobe Bryant. Kobe's father passed away Tuesday morning. He was 69. A cause of death was not released. Joe Bryant had been in poor health recently after suffering a stroke. Bryant played 3 of his 8 NBA seasons with the Clippers when they played in San Diego. Bryant, a Philadelphia native, also played with the Sixers and Houston Rockets. Kobe was born in Italy in 1978 when Joe was playing in the country after leaving the NBA. 2 players from HBCU schools were selected in the Major League Baseball draft. Randy Flores, a second baseman at Alabama State, was chosen in the 8th round by the Angels. Flores batted .338 this season with 20 homers and 98 RBIs. Canyon Brown, a catcher at North Carolina A&T, was chosen by the Kansas City Royals in the 9th round. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hello, LA. Metro is your partner for thriving communities and sustainable travel. We're dedicated to providing better transit for everyone. When you go Metro, you're more connected to jobs, healthcare, school, and loved ones. It's the way of the future. Start your journey at metro.net.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some of the offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and we're over here talking to Travell Anderson about the latest kerfuffle with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. GLAAD put out a statement, and GLAAD said some members of the organization say the proposed language is not only discriminatory and unnecessarily exclusionary, but politically motivated. They say the organization's national leadership and the amendment don't reflect a broader Alpha membership that can be more accepting and welcoming. Travell, do you believe that?
Well, I think we would have to think through it a little bit, right? So this past weekend, it was the Alpha's Constitutional Convention. It's this space where every chapter sends a certain number of delegates representing them to this convention to debate the different stuff and decide, right, collectively what the general body will have to vote on. In theory, the delegates are representative of their chapters and therefore representative of the broader Alpha community. And the update that I published yesterday was that over the weekend, they overwhelmingly voted to see this proposed bylaw be part and considered, at their next convention next summer. And so I think that tells us that despite there being, right, perhaps maybe pockets of the brotherhood that are welcoming and supportive, and even, considering a more expansive definition, right, of manhood and masculinity that trans members might be able to contribute to. There does seem to be a broader, sentiment within the organization that, trans members have no place in the organization. We won't find out if that's actually certain until next year, right? When the broader body gets to weigh in. But I've been seeing a lot of discourse, both from members of Alpha Phi Alpha as well as other Divine Nine organizations and their members, about how these institutions that we have historically looked up to as Black folks, right, may or may not be meeting us where we are as a broader community.
And there are some people that also point to some of the federal protections that exist right now. I believe it's Title IX protections that essentially render fraternities and sororities sort of exempt. Generally prohibits recipient institutions from excluding, separating, and denying benefits to folks otherwise that would be treated differently on the basis of sex in educational programs. But fraternities and sororities are exempt from that, no?
Well, so yes, legally, Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Beta Sigma, whomever, right, can do what they want as these single-sex social institutions. What a lot of the experts are saying, however, will impact the organization is how the enforcement of this, say, proposed bylaw manifests in terms of like the actual chapters, right? Many of these being student chapters, collegiate chapters, who are on college campuses that get federal funding that prevent them from discriminating against trans people, because that is currently how Title IX, Title VII is being interpreted. Now, of course, we can get into the broader legal, conversation of it all in terms of the various shifts that we are seeing in terms of some of these interpretations, how the interpretations might continue to shift under a Republican presidency, under a Trump presidency to be specific. But currently, the question is, will collegiate chapters be able to, legally restrict trans members from joining the organization? And if they can't, as the experts believe they will not be able to, how will that impact Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Beta Sigma? How has it impacted Phi Beta Sigma, right, in terms of which institutions can have chapters of the organization and which can't?
Is there any concern about having this conversation right now during election 2024, where, there are a number of folks really across the political spectrum, if we're keeping the bread fresh, that feel uncomfortable, with welcoming, trans folks, into restrooms, into athletic teams, into so many different institutions? Is there a potential for that the way this particular conversation is being had, is there a potential for it to become a lightning rod discussion as we get closer to November 2024?
I mean, I think particularly in Black communities, maybe, right? I think we know the outsized impact that the Divine Nine has in our culture, in our communities. And if this continues to be an ever-present conversation, particularly driven by, gay, queer, trans members of these organizations, I think that's possible, especially when we see, more, older, more traditional, more conservative folks across identities, pushing back, if you will, when it comes to trans inclusion. What I will note, though, is that, trans people have always existed, right, in every culture and community on this great earth since the beginning of time. We did not necessarily have the language of transgender to describe them, but you got somebody, some uncle in your family right? Who was a little feminine, who got his nails done, who was click-clacking around, who you loved because of their presence. And today, that person might identify as trans, right? And so I like to articulate it in that way because I think once we show folks that trans people are already in your communities, you already love us, we are already your children, your siblings, your cousins, your parents, right? That maybe you won't think of, for example, in this case with Alpha Phi Alpha or any of the other fraternities and sororities, of a trans person as different, right, than you as another Black person, and rather realizing that all of our fights for inclusion, social justice, etc., are actually interconnected, right? And if the Black trans person isn't free to be their full selves in Black spaces, right? What makes you think you will ever, as a Black person, be able to be your full free self in non-Black spaces, right? It's all super connected. And I just think a lot of us don't realize that. And so it's easy to point the trans community or the broader LGBTQ community, right, as the problem, when we should be seeing how we can actually align, right? Particularly for those of us who are at the intersection as people who are both Black and LGBTQ.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of intersections, I mean, here we are, having conversations all over again about, a potential Muslim ban, if former President Trump were to go back into the Oval Office, or a national abortion ban. And here we are talking about a trans ban. And by the way, there's a lot of political capital that's being spent to push forward a trans ban in sports, for example, and in other areas as well. And so I guess my big question is sort of, where do we go from here? I remember being a part of the movement around marriage equality, which was, sort of a state by state movement. And there was a lot of hearts and mind work that had to go, changing hearts and minds, right? You change hearts and minds before you can change laws. There's a lot of that work that had to happen, a lot of courageous conversations that had to happen. Is the trans community prepared to sort of take that on when it comes to, the Pan-Hellenic Council and, Black fraternities and sororities? Is there an interest in really launching a campaign to change the hearts and minds of folks in Black fraternities and sororities and other institutions, if this alpha trans ban, for example, goes into effect?
Yeah, well, I think the responsibility really is on the members of these organizations, right? The ones who, for example, right, were the whistleblowers and spoke to me, right, to report out this story because they feel, right, that this type of policy is in conflict with not only the values of the organization, but also their own personal values. I think the changing of the hearts and the minds, particularly in these institutions, has to come from the folks who are already on the inside, right? Because the trans folks, aren't going to be invited to the constitutional conventions to have the conversation. That's what they have shown us based on, the ways that the broader organization have treated not just trans members, but also other gay members, right? Who talk about being ostracized and othered and having, being forced to stay in the closet because of a broader sentiment of, toxic masculinity that is often found in these spaces. I think beyond that, then we have the conversation about trans people who might want to call these communities home, who might already call these communities home, and whether or not the institutions themselves will allow those members who are already there, right, to show them the promised land and the future that might be possible. We know that so many queer and trans folks within these organizations have held panels and done short documentaries and written articles and whatnot about their experiences trying to do that work. Maybe this is just another step in that process.
Well, maybe it is. And look, I'm sure there are a lot of people who could contribute to advancing the mission of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and all the other fraternities and sororities and institutions if they felt welcomed. And so I think there's a way to maintain tradition and do the will of your members while also creating space, for folks who want to be in community and on mission and are willing to engage in a process to do that. It seems to me that the opportunities to co-create a shared vision that meets the moment is not as far apart as some might suggest. When we come forward, we're gonna do a lightning round of headlines with Travell Anderson while we have them. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, it includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Paid for by government. Did you hear? A secret hoard of 1904 $20 gold Liberty coins have been found. These gorgeous 1904p gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this secret U.S. gold coin discovery a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you can own a piece of the hoard. When you call, you are guaranteed a 1904 gold Liberty struck at the iconic Philadelphia Mint. With limited availability, you must call now. These 1904 dated gold coins are still in uncirculated condition with brilliant luster. That is 120 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-973-3083. Call now, and you'll receive a free bonus, a $75 value free with every order. Call 1-800-973-3083 now to secure your 1904p $20 gold Liberty coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-973-3083.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We are live with Travell Anderson. Travell is an award-winning journalist, podcast host, and authoress. Please be sure to pick up their book. It's called We See Each Other, A Black Trans Journey Through TV and Film. Travell is also co-authoress of the NAACP Image Award winning. I'm saying it loudly because I called it before he won the NAACP.
You did call it.
It's called Historically Black Phrases, from I ain't one of your little friends to who all gonna be there.
You did call it.
I love it. We love you. We're talking through some of the biggest headlines right now. Obviously, the Republican National Convention is happening right now. The Los Angeles Times is reporting that Republicans are mentioning Kamala a lot, but Trump but the Trump shooting is lowering pressure on Biden to drop out. Republicans have been featuring VP Harris prominently in their attacks on the Biden administration at this week's convention, a sign that they believe President Biden will step aside and elevate her to the top of the ticket. Even though the president keeps saying, I'm in it, I'm not going anywhere. Travell, what's going to happen?
I don't know. So one of the podcasts I co-host is called What a Day. It's a daily news podcast. So we've been covering all of these headlines that have been swirling about what could be happening to the Democratic ticket. And like you said, Joe Biden has told us over and over and over that he ain't going nowhere. So I think we should listen to the man, okay? But who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Well, somebody else that we should listen to is the NFL Hall of Famer Terrell Davis, who says he was handcuffed and removed from a flight. NBC News is reporting that the Hall of Famer says he was handcuffed and removed from a flight headed to California following an accusation by a flight attendant on Saturday. Yeah, Davis, who played for the Broncos from 1995 to 2001 and helped them win 2 Super Bowls, said the incident happened after his son requested a cup of ice during the beverage part of the trip. The flight attendant either didn't hear or ignored the request and continued past their row. That's what Davis said. He said he calmly reached behind and lightly tapped his arm to get his attention to ask for a cup of ice for his son. His response and the events that followed stunned all of them. The flight attendant shouted, "Don't hit me," and left the cart to hurriedly approach the front of the plane. Was confused, as were passengers in front who witnessed the exchange. Long story short, by the time they landed, agents, 6 FBI and other law enforcement agents boarded the plane, placed him in handcuffs, and removed him from the flight in front of his family. He says, quotes, "I was and remain humiliated, embarrassed, powerless, and angry." It's just another day being, a Black man where people assume the worst. Is this just another example of that?
I mean, I wasn't there, doctor, so I don't know what went down.
Based on what NBC reported.
Based on what they're reporting, there definitely is some questions about, is this a sign of racism? Is this a sign of something else? I don't know, but, it definitely doesn't sound good that he's now on somebody's no-fly list for a misunderstanding, it sounds like.
United Airlines said in a statement to NBC News, "This is clearly not the kind of travel experience we strive to provide, and we've reached out to Mr. Davis's team to apologize. We have removed the flight attendant from duty while we closely review the matter." More headlines and more of Travell Anderson when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? My...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Here's a little bit of the quiet part out loud. NBC News reporting that Project 2025 insiders see Trump's disavowal as, quotes, two siblings in a fight, not a rejection. The brain trust behind Project 2025 isn't sweating former President Trump's disavowal of the wide-ranging presidential transition plan and policy roadmap for a potential second Trump administration. At recent events in D.C. and Milwaukee, Project 2025 proponents and allies sought to diffuse tensions and go on offense against the press and Democrats after Trump took the wind out of their sail with critical social media posts as Democrats oriented their campaign around the plan. Should we take him at his word, Travell? He's saying that, Project 2025, nothing to see here. He's acting as if this is not a major part of his plan. Should he regain the Oval Office? Should we take former President Trump at his word?
Listen, my granny used to say, maybe your granny used to say the same. When somebody show you who they are, believe them, okay? He has shown us who he is. He has shown us the types of policies that he will advocate for. Project 2025 takes those and cranks them up on steroids. When they say make America great again, that again that they are referencing is not great, to be clear, not for us, not for our people, right? And so I would not believe him at all that he will somehow be not as extreme as Project 2025 shows us that he will be.
It's important to note that earlier at this 3-day National Conservatism Conference in Washington just last week, more than a dozen leaders and advisors and contributors to Project 2025 and their allies, they made their case for drastically reconstituting the civil service, retaliating against Democrats for their ongoing prosecution of Trump, launching mass deportations of undocumented immigrants, and countering anti-white discrimination. But he said, ain't nothing to see here. I'm with you. Look, people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. But, what is it, in our remaining minute or two, Travell, I want to give you the final word. But can you explain the sort of Black MAGA phenomenon? We saw Amber Rose speak at the Republican National Convention yesterday. There's rumors that 50 Cent may be making an appearance or a performance. Certainly we've seen Senator Tim Scott twist himself up like a pretzel to fit in to the MAGA movement. In about a minute or so, talk to us about this Black MAGA phenomenon and why we should.
Yeah, I'll just say it's something that I don't quite understand beyond the fact that we know that there are some Black people, many that we might know, right, who like aligning themselves with whiteness for whatever privileges, right, that it might afford them, right? And we know with some of the other hip hop folks who have, endorsed Trump, that they're doing it because he, pardoned somebody they knew when he was in office. I encourage people just to maybe don't take your political advice from the people who you also get your music from.
Maybe. Our thanks to Travell Anderson. Be sure to pick up Travell's book. It is called We See Each Other, a Black trans journey through TV and film. They are also the co-authoress of the NAACP Image Award-winning Historically Black Phrases from I Ain't One of Your Little Friends to Who All Gonna Be There. Be sure to pick those up. Our thanks to you for joining us always.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to the Village that helps us produce a More Perfect Union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley. Our sound engineer extraordinaire, Miles Lowe. Our show producer, Robert Battles. And podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie. Remember, do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. You've been listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.